Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. So Pakistan has officially closed the supply line, the main logistical artery for the invading forces in Afghanistan. The NATO invaders are cut off from their access to the Indian Ocean and the ports, Karachi and other Pakistani ports, and the tank trucks that are building up inside Pakistan are now being attacked by various mujahideen groups. So the latest count, I believe, is 7 or 8 separate attacks with RPGs and other weapons to blow up these tanker trucks. It is a severe crisis. Now, of course, the NATO invaders had seen this coming. They had arranged other supply lines going through the former Soviet republics north of Afghanistan. However, that is a much longer distance, much more expensive, logistically many problems, also vulnerable for various parts of the trip. It is a severe crisis, and the presence of these mujahideen in Pakistan, who have apparently figured out that this logistical angle is the main vulnerability of the invading forces, that is very ominous for this military adventure. It is at the same time the goal of the U.S. and the other NATO states to export that civil war out of Afghanistan and as deep as possible into Pakistan. And that was the clear message of Obama's West Point speech last December. Go back and read what I wrote at tarpley.net. Obama declares war on Pakistan. That was the unmistakable thrust of that speech. So what's the answer? The U.S. and NATO to get out of Afghanistan. Get out, leave with all deliberate speed, put an end to this crisis, give up on the idea of using Afghanistan, first of all, to block the integration economically and otherwise of Eurasia, and above all, give up on this insane plan of attempting to export that civil war into Pakistan. So let's then come back here to the United States. We've had a really tragic and shameful event. Governor Christie of New Jersey, we've often described him as New Jersey's answer to Hermann Goering, the fat Nazi bigwig. Governor Christie of New Jersey has now declared that he is blocking, sabotaging the construction of a highly necessary railway tunnel between New Jersey and New York. It goes from New Jersey underneath the Hudson River and into Manhattan. It is a project of multi-billion-dollar dimensions. It is a project which has been planned for 20 years. It is a project which has already cost about $500 million to $1 billion just in the planning and the preparation of this. Christie now says that his fat cat supporters, the millionaires that he represents, the parasites and sociopaths that he regards as the key to human society, don't want to pay for that. They don't want to be taxed, and they don't want to arrange for payment any other way, because you wouldn't even have to tax anybody for a capital investment like this. He's shutting down the project. This is a day of infamy and shame for the United States. And the question is, will the government in Washington and other interested parties allow this bankrupt, ultra-reactionary, verging into something much worse? Are they going to let him destroy the economic perspectives of this huge metropolitan area? Because that is the issue. If you don't build this, there's virtually no infrastructure project that can have a chance. You remember we talked last week about the Amtrak long-term development program over the next 30 years, and we think it should happen much quicker. But in terms of program, remember that Amtrak says that they want to rebuild the entire rail line from Boston to New York City to Philadelphia to Baltimore to Washington, D.C. Yes, that's exactly what you should be thinking of doing. It's a $120 billion project over 30 years. Again, I would do it in 30 months, but $120 billion. And if you don't do it over 30 months, it's going to cost more because inflation has a way of coming in. Rebuild all those tracks, and remember the jobs involved. 120,000 permanent jobs, 44,000 construction jobs. And the result of that, you would have 220-mile-an-hour trains minimum. I think we could do better. We could get up to 350 to 400 with maglev, and you make all those tracks dual use. That would allow you to solve the growing congestion in the airspace over these megalopolis areas, because that's what you're talking about, what was called megalopolis back in the 1960s. The modernization of the entire Northeast Corridor depends on that rail line being renewed. And one of the engineering jobs that's got to be done, one of the centerpiece, keystone engineering jobs, is to build that tunnel under the Hudson River. And that's what the demagogue Christie is now proposing to block. New Jersey can't afford to pay for the cost overruns of this project, says Christie, who has sabotaged the millionaire tax. No taxes on millionaires. Rich parasites get off free. Rich parasites, said Christie, should come to New Jersey. But for the future development of the United States, this is national infrastructure. If there's a national interest, by God, it means that this rail line, this tunnel, has got to be built. It started at $5 billion in 2005. It grew to $8.7 billion by 2008. It may go up to $9 billion to $10 billion. Christie says $11 billion to $14 billion. I don't care. Look at the money that's thrown around. How much do we spend in corporate welfare? This, again, Obama makes this possible. This should have been included in the so-called stimulus, the $700 billion. A lot of that stuff was put into projects that didn't make any obvious visible difference in people's lives. This would do it. The alternative, by the way, is that the current situation, you have one rail tunnel going under the Hudson River. One. It is a century old. It's more than 100 years old. So it's a two-track tunnel beneath the Hudson River built in the early 20th century, from the late 19th to the early 20th century, pre-World War I. It's about 1905 or 1900 to 1905. The new tunnel would double that by adding two more tracks, which would mean that commuter rail, passenger rail, and even freight rail could also come into the city between New York and New Jersey more easily. And it will mean just the cancellation of this tunnel means that many thousands of jobs are immediately destroyed. Now, this is a pattern. The Tea Party fanatics, the reactionary Republicans, the anti-national subversive forces who want to destroy America's future, and they want to plead that they don't want to pay. They don't want to have their ill-gotten gain touched. These hedge fund hyenas, financial parasites, and others say, no, they don't want to do it. The future of this country is at stake. I think I can hear the Chinese laughing. The Chinese who have just completed the Guangzhou to Wuhan fast rail, which is already now in operation, going 220 miles an hour. They're laughing at these stupid Americans, right? The fat demagogue Christie, the reactionary bum who runs New Jersey, is sabotaging the future of the United States. No money for national greatness, no money for national survival when it comes to these reactionary Republican demagogues. Kick them out. Get rid of Christie. Get rid of Christie as governor of New Jersey. We'll be back in a minute.